Welcome back to Crypto Global News. Today we bring you the first part of the interview I did with Tim McNamara of Hut34. Tim is an expert on financial derivatives and has built algorithmic trading systems and strategies for over 20 years. From pork bellies to bandwidth derivatives to German Bunds, he's traded them. And at one stage he managed a fund with over $150 million in assets. Every time Tim makes a Bitcoin or Ethereum transaction, he's filled with a grand sense of wonder and excitement. And now for my sit down with Tim. Tim, it's good to see you again, buddy.
Cheers, good to see you.
Thanks for having me over again. That's a bit strong, that. Anyway, so I want to ask you some questions about Hut34. I also want to talk to you about your Google Wallet, which is really exciting. But I sort of want to start back at where the whole journey began. So, you started out as sort of a whiz kid and all that kind of stuff. Then you did a physio degree and you jumped into the world of finance. So what took you along that path into finance from physio and all the other things?
Well, I've always been a sort of a science geek, science and computer geek from a long way back, but also enjoyed sports. So there's a natural sort of synergy between reasonably academically competent and enjoying sports and physiotherapy. Growing up in a small country town was sort of a natural fit to go into a profession like that. But over time, pretty quickly realised I enjoyed the hard sciences more. I enjoyed the maths and the quantitative side more than perhaps other parts of being let's call it a health professional. So pretty quickly into my degree, started work as an intern for a quantitative trading group. Learning.
So how old were you when that happened?
21.
Okay, so it's very early in your adult years.
Yeah, 21, thereabouts, plus or minus. And worked for them part-time for a number of years whilst I just made a decision to finish the degree that I was in, effectively with the intent of finishing what I'd started and then moving into full-time finance thereafter. So whilst studying that particular degree, also working as an intern for a quantitative trading group, moving on to a role with them, running projects, developing algorithmic trading systems and analysing data and that sort of stuff.
Cool. So now you have sort of 20 odd years experience in finance generally. Obviously we'll talk about blockchain and that stuff later. What advice would you give to that kid who's bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, getting out of uni, wants to jump into finance? What are sort of the three things that you'd want to tell them about what to do, and perhaps the three things that you would have changed in the beginning when you got started?
Not get into finance.
It's a good place to start.
Well, I think adding value is a lot more fun than seeking rent, and a lot of the financial world is about pretty much rent extraction, and it can be very profitable and it's a massive market and so forth. But personally, I find it much more fulfilling to build things, to add value, to solve problems. So I don't know what specific advice I'd give to a young person wanting to get into finance. There is find the sectors, the sub-sectors within the finance industry where you really feel you can add some genuine value across that, wherever that be in the supply chain to the end customer or through the process, and focus on value add rather than purely rent or brokerage or fee extraction. Sure.
What would you have done differently in sort of those first few years when you got started, if you could sort of go back and change things a bit?
Perhaps have sought a pathway through a large institution, sometimes the imprimatur of a larger, very large global corporate can accelerate your progress rather than my natural inclination is to be a bit more entrepreneurial, so wanting to do things more myself or for sort of small to mid-sized firms that give you that flexibility. The trade-off is, sometimes there's a lot to be gained from working for a larger brand name institution as well. So I probably would have, in hindsight, spent more time, at least in the formative years, working for larger institutional institutions and banks.
Yeah, I could see there'd be a big upside to doing something like that, absolutely. So not long after that, you actually managed a fund that had over 150 million in assets. So sort of what led you to that point, and what was probably the greatest takeaway from managing such a large fund?
Well, that was quite a long way after that. So I started in mid 1990s, and this is mid 2000s. So there was a raft of sort of progression and learning and roles and so forth. Whether that be initially on the quantitative side and the analytics piece, working on the sell side as a broker, arranging whether it be facilitating or arranging transactions between customers, and then working what's termed the buy side, which is effectively managing a pool of assets. So that was just a natural progression to something I wanted to do. So the group that I was responsible for, sub-managers and so forth, managed about started quite small, and we grew that to about 150 million in assets.
So on the way to getting to the world of blockchain and crypto, when you were doing your finance, was there like a favorite job or like a favorite thing you did on the path to where you're at now?
I enjoy sort of quantitative analysis. It's quite strong in the statistics field, and which naturally sort of rolls over into modelling and analysis of markets and market behaviours. But also enjoyed the sales side as well. Naturally talking to people, communicating ideas, selling them various propositions or ideas and so forth. So I enjoyed both of those things, and I guess putting blockchain aside, that all fits nicely with running a database business or growing a database business where you need to have the analytical capacity, but you also need to have the ability to communicate what your vision for the future is.
Yeah, absolutely. You started out doing not basic, but sort of trading out in the 90s, and you've progressed now to like specifically blockchain. Like, why did you make that transition?
Well, our business is a data business. Our business is about, I truly believe that if you create interoperable data protocols and systems, and you allow people to more easily access data, share data, and data is sort of one of the formative building blocks for information, and on top of that you have knowledge. If you allow people to share data more easily, whether it be a small, an individual person globally, a large corporation, etc. If you facilitate more easy sharing, then at the end of the day, you can create a better world. It's cliche, but it's true. But to do that, people need incentives, and they're not always monetary incentives. But you need a system whereby it's easy to do something, and you're incentivised to do that. And they're two critical components that. Some of the blockchain technology that we've integrated into the business allows us to achieve. It allows us to achieve easy-ish, secure, trustless transfer of data from person A to person B, and it allows us to build the incentivisation system such that you are more willing to want to share data between one another or buy data and so forth. So therefore, you're rewarded for your value add, I'm rewarded for my value add, and we can interact with one another in a much more seamless way. So that's the real reason, and that's the big picture reason why sharing data is so powerful.
Yeah, I suppose it goes back to that thing you said before about not just seeking rent, but actually adding value. There's certainly much more of that in that.
If you look at some great stuff happening, just the space is exploding, and you just can't keep up. My head hurts daily on all the amazing things that people are doing. And you have crowdsourced wisdom, crowdsourced intellect. You have various, for example, in the medtech area, pooled swarm intelligence, where a whole group of doctors or practitioners will can rapidly review, let's call it X-rays or MRIs, etc. And you can get swarm-based diagnoses, swarm-based intelligence to drive much better health outcomes than a single doctor who may or may not, have a level of expertise. But all of a sudden, through accessing the collective intelligence of a large group of highly qualified practitioners, that the hope is, and I believe that's true, that the health outcomes that you can derive from that are just amazing.
Quite a dude to chat to. In part 2 of my interview with Tim, we take a closer look at Hut34 and the other projects they have on the go. For Crypto Global News, I'm Edward. Until next time, you take it easy.